All right, here we go. Hey, what's up, world? What's going on? You know who it is, Anthony Velvet Hall, coming to you live and direct. And welcome to the very first edition of the Planet Velvet Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am joined by none other than the multi-talented co-host of mine, the one, the only, Neff. Neff.
I'm sorry, that's what they got me spinning. I've been spinning all week. I've been waiting, anticipating this. Yes, it's Neff. I'm here. Hi, how's it going?
Absolutely, man. Let's just jump right into it because you already know what the biggest story of the week happens to be. So let's just jump right on into everything that's going on. All right. So, as many of you know, the big story this week is Sasha Banks and Naomi. And let me just run down some of the things that have happened this week and try to give you guys a nice synopsis of what's happened. Okay. Monday night, Sasha Banks and Naomi, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, were slated to take part in the six-pack challenge to determine the number one contender to the Raw Women's Championship. Sasha was not keen with the way the match was going to play out, and she decided to do something about it. Naomi, her tag team partner, fully backed Sasha, and they walked into John Laurinaitis' office and put down their women's tag team championships and left the show. A couple hours later, WWE released a statement. That's long, but one part of the statement I really wanted to read is this, where it says, and I quote, "Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract." All right. Now, Sasha Banks has a history of leaving WWE for whatever reason. I don't know. But the general feeling in the locker room for Sasha was very unsympathetic. Not so much for Naomi. All right. So when all this stuff is going on, WWE decides not to fire them, probably out of fear that they go to AEW. So what are they going to do? Well, Michael Cole addressed that situation this past Friday on SmackDown, where he said that because of their actions, Sasha Banks and Naomi are indefinitely suspended. They have been stripped of the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, and new champions will be determined at a later date. So, having said all that, Neff, I'm going to give you the floor, my brother. Spill your guts and tell me what you think about this entire situation.
It's been a long week there, sir. It's been since Monday. It's been driving me crazy. I've been reading all the reviews, all the comments. It's like you said about Sasha Banks. It's not uncharacteristic for her to walk away from a match, especially if she's not feeling it. I feel like she's put in the work and she deserves to make that call. For whatever reason, Naomi, she, of course, as her tag team partner, decides to walk out with her. What's crazy to me and what I've been kind of going back and forth on is that in the women's division in WWE, they really don't have many stables or many women athletes that can, carry on a storyline or rivalry. And it's just bizarre that they were willing to put them in a 6-woman match. They are willing to break up Naomi and Sasha, have them have rivals. I'm reading all backstory. These are all backstory. My sources, Mr. Jack and Mr. Daniels. That's my sources here. So I don't have many sources on the inside saying, okay, this is what it was. But clearly, the decision to try to break them up so early after Sasha Banks has not had any like real storylines developing. They just don't have anything for them. And it just became an issue. And hey, they had to do what they had to do. I support it.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna give my opinion about the whole thing, but ladies and gentlemen, we have just been joined by a man who I personally think is a pro wrestling treasure. This man is the one, the only veteran pro wrestler and former head trainer of the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy, Mr. Rudy Boy Gonzalez. Rudy, how are you, my friend?
Hey, how you guys doing? And
Doing pretty good. We jumped right into the mix and talked about what's happening in wrestling. And as you know, the biggest story this week is Sasha Banks and Naomi. I just went through somewhat of a timeline synopsis of everything that's happened. And I'm sure you've been watching and listening to this entire situation play out. Please give me your thoughts on this entire situation.
so, first of all, Anthony, thank you very much for the opportunity to come on your inaugural podcast,
Absolutely.
your first show. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I've been following the Sasha Banks and Naomi situation. My opinion is, and it may not be a popular one, but my opinion is they're being paid by a company an enormous amount of money to do what they're being asked to do. And maybe some things, and I can say this from experience, maybe some things may not make sense to you today, but just if you learn to just let the process play out, then next week, next month, next 6 months, whatever, then you'll say, oh, now I know why they did this. Now I know why they did that. But and I don't work for the company, so I don't know exactly there's a lot of little moving parts also. So I don't know exactly what's being said or done or what, the atmosphere and stuff like that. But, I mean, if you were to work at Walmart and they say, okay, you're going to be working in the deli department. And if you do well at the deli department, then we're going to give you a raise. And then, 3 days later, they say, okay, we want you working in the, in the meat department. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you guys just said, no, we want you over here instead. And so, I mean, you can't just say, you know what, I'm leaving Walmart. I'm not working here no more. I'm done with this. You got to kind of like go along with, they're paying you. I think Road Dogg said something like they're paying them a lot of money. I don't know about millions, but they're paying them a lot of money to work for the company. And I mean, they can go to the independents if they want and make $20, $30, $40, $50 a show. Just, at some point, I mean, you are working for the largest wrestling company in the world. You are working for in my opinion, one of the smartest guys in the wrestling business, and Vince McMahon. I mean, I know I see a lot of guys say he's out of touch and he's an old man, but I mean, he does have the largest, and he has been around for a while. So at some point, you have to trust the process and just go along with it. And maybe you don't agree with it, that's fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting paid to do this. So, and then on their side, I agree. I mean, I can see where they don't understand, and this person wasn't given an opportunity to do this, and they didn't have enough time for that, and so all they have to do is walk in the office and discuss it, not play it out. And even if they did just walk in and drop their belts and walk out, you don't have to play it out on social media, and that's the other thing that I was like, I side with the girls, I side with the company, but then I don't side with anybody because it's being played out on social media and things can get out of whack very quickly.
I will say this though about the whole social media thing. They didn't say anything Like their social media was pretty like quiet throughout the night. I know that Sasha posted something early that morning, but going into the night, they didn't say a word. It was WWE that wanted to make the first shot live
Was
on
it?
TV right before Naomi's husband went into the ring right before the tag team unification match on SmackDown. So that was a
Right.
little bizarre and uncharacteristic of WWE to make it so public when they haven't addressed anybody else's walkouts over the years. That was just kind of out of pocket
So
for them.
exactly. So exactly what you said. It was kind of uncharacteristic. So there's other stuff going on that we don't obviously know about. So I would just let it play, and on for the girls' part, I would have just let it play out and just just go about whatever it was that they're trying to tell them to do or whatever, and see what happens. And then if it doesn't, if things are still like not according to what they want to do, then they can say, hey, you know what, we don't like what's going on, we're going to walk out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the top, at the top of the deal, don't just we don't like this, we're leaving, because then it gives a bad taste. I mean, I like Naomi, I like Sasha, I think they're incredible performers, entertainers, whatever you want to call them, but doing what they did kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I see
Yeah.
it being played out on social media like they're spoiled kids and whatever, and I'm sure they're not. They thought they did, at the end of the day, they did what they thought was right.
Yeah, I look at it from just a completely. I take all that stuff into consideration, but in just looking at it, I understand their gripes. I understand that maybe they did not approve with the way things were going to happen, because that does happen. Everybody doesn't agree with how things happen in pro wrestling. Um, the action they took is just kind of is really murky. It's like we're dealing with murky waters right there. And the reason I say that is because one thing that always happens, like I deal with a lot of Facebook groups, and people are the one thing that almost happened immediately was the race card was thrown in. Everybody was talking about, Sasha's a woman of color. She doesn't get, a chance, and comparing what she's done in comparison to some of the other people. Let me just give you guys a quick synopsis of some of the stuff that Sasha has done. Okay. Sasha has been in the business 12 years. 10 of those years she spent in WWE between NXT and the main roster. 10 years, that's a decade. In that 10-year span, the things she's accomplished: one time NXT champion, 5 times Raw women's champion. That's the second most in the history of that championship, even though it's fairly new. That's pretty good accomplishment. SmackDown women's champion. 3-time women's tag team champion, which is a record that she shares with Nikki Ash, but she was still part of the inaugural women's tag team champions.
Yeah.
She was one of the women who competed in the very first all women's Iron Man match. She was one of the women who competed in the very first all women's Hell in a Cell match. She's won multiple PWI awards, and she's received mainstream attention and awards from outlets like CBS Sports and ESPN. She has had a dream career no matter what color you look like or no matter what gender you are. And to be that impulsive and not really notice that, not, considering that you just came back from a sabbatical, mind you,
Right.
you know, wrestling runs don't happen. You don't get 10-year wrestling runs. You really don't. You don't get good quality 10-year wrestling runs. Hulk Hogan, for everything everybody says about him, changed the game, but his run was 4 years at best. That 4-year reign he had, he did so much, and even though we had a women's revolution, 10 years of just consistently making history, breaking barriers, and knocking down doors, you don't get that in the business. I personally think that she should have thought a little better about the way she handled it. If WWE actually did fire her, I probably wouldn't blame them, to be honest with you, because they probably won't out of fear that she go to AEW, but even that would not be enough for me not to fire her, and here's why. Outside of John Moxley, Chris Jericho, and to a smaller degree, Miro, there haven't been a whole lot of WWE cast-offs who have had extremely super success in AEW. A lot of them have kind of been like we're in AEW, because just the landscape of wrestling is this nowadays. Storylines get ruined by marks who go and try to find out what's going to happen. Well, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. They run the social media and they talk about it, and storylines get ruined. AEW is smart enough to recognize that in today's wrestling landscape, the money is in the moments. And that's why AEW is so popular. Jeff Hardy debuts, Keith Lee debuts, Swerve debuts, Tony Storm debuts, some of the CM Punk debuts, Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson debuts. Some of the best things that have happened in AEW have had nothing to do with matches. They've had everything to do with moments. Right. So if Sasha was to make her way there, or Naomi was to make her way there, of course, Sasha can't use the name that she used for 10 years. So that's already just bad. You know, if she goes over there, there'll be a moment, and that's it. That's all that will happen at best. I just really don't. I think she should have done a little better with the way she chose to go about her business. It's just it's crazy, but you know, that's my take on it. Neff, what are you thinking?
Yes, it's so unfortunate. I mean, I understand the frustration at the end of the day, but even with her contract being almost up, it's kind of like if you get suspended, they can literally hold you as long as they want to hold you without your contract being fully out. So for her to even try to go to another organization, she can't right now because now she's on hold. And they can just do that. They can just hold it. And it's not the first time she's walked away from a match. We talked about it earlier. I think this is like her third time that she was announced for a match and then she didn't show or didn't, participate. But I understand her frustration in a way. But like you said, it's all been impulse. Like to walk into the office and leave your belts and walk out on the company. That was all on impulse. But at the same time, the contract, they got two options for you. You either lean with it or rock with it. And that's the only two options you're about to get when it comes to WWE. So, making a decision or just walking out on it, I feel bad for them. I support it in a way because, again, the storylines were not going to match up to what they wanted to do. They haven't had a real storyline behind their tag team championships. I've always voted for the WWE to have women's tag team championships, but when there's not enough, competition in that department, then it's like you can't just keep creating teams out of nowhere and build stories around it because you can't, you can't fight the men for their tag team championship. So when there's not enough competitors in that lane, then it's not enough stories to go around. But clearly, they wasn't with it, and here we are.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest problems with the creation of the tag team championships because there seemed to be a lot of promise. You had the Boston Hug connection, even though they put Asuka and Kairi Sane together as the Kabuki Warriors, at least they had a tag team name and did something in the vein of famous tag teams of the past. The Iconics before they left. And then after they left, it just seemed like you just had makeshift tag teams that had the belts. So as far as the future of the tag team, the women's tag team division goes, Rudy, do you think that there will be a concentrated effort to probably mold this division as far as it being a tag team division in the mold of classic tag teams where you have, teams that actually look like teams instead of two wandering talents that you put together and slap the belts on?
I don't know. It's in today's climate with everybody worrying about their brand and stuff like that, it's hard to put two different individuals and try and make them into a true tag team. Is two guys, two individuals that create one unit. But I don't see. I'm trying to think right now. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I mean, in wrestling, you can do anything you want, but it just takes time to develop, and you kind of got to see if it's going to work or not. So, if you say like today, the only other team I see out there really is the Toxic Girls, but they're NXT though.
Toxic Attraction.
Yeah, there you go. But they're in NXT, but they can be brought up. It can be done. It'll just take time to do.
Right. Neff, your thoughts on the future of the women's tag team division?
It's tough. It's really tough. I mean, it can be done. They can form a couple other groups or tag teams, but it's slim. It's very slim, and the individual talent alone, they have so much potential and so many angles that they're going to go at that I just don't see them stepping away from the singles competition to create more factions or more teams.
Gotcha. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step away for about a good 30 seconds. When we come back, we will be discussing the Joker's Wild Jokers in this week's Owen Hart tournament matches. Stay tuned. It's the Planet
Ooh, buddy.
Masters of Ring Entertainment comes to Truist Point Stadium, home of the High Point Rockers, Saturday, June 11th. See Hall of Famers Kurt Angle and the Steiner Brothers, AEW Penta El Zero Miedo, Lucha Legend Juventud Guerrera, Killer Cross and Scarlet, TJP, Terry Runnels, Matt Taven, a Battle Royal, and more. Manifest 4 to 7 p.m., 7 p.m. Beltline. Go to morewrestling.com.
Hey, welcome back. As you just saw, that was a commercial for Masters of Ring Entertainment. They'll be having a show next month in High Point, North Carolina, featuring a lot of AEW, Impact, and independent stars. I had a opportunity to work for them about 5 or 6 years ago. It was a great show. I happened to be on the show with a lot of really good people like Jeff Jarrett, Karen Jarrett, EC3, Gunner, Caprice Coleman, Sanjay Dutt, and so many other people. They'll be running their show, and I'm happy to announce that Planet Velvet, the parent company of this podcast, is a sponsor for that show. So if you want to get more information on that, please log on to morewrestling.com. That's MORE wrestling.com. Okay, now in the midst of us talking about everything that happened with Sasha and Naomi, I brought up the fact that AEW capitalizes on moments. And with the Owen Hart Foundation tournament happening, we all were subjected to the mystery of wondering who the Jokers were in these tournament matches. The Jokers for the men's tournament, the Joker for the men's tournament turned out to be John Morrison, who is now Johnny Elite. He took on Samoa Joe, who is the reigning Ring of Honor television champion in a losing effort. And on the women's side, the Joker happened to be Maki Ito. Yes, Maki Ito is something to see, and maybe something to hear, depending on your taste in music. But she lost her first round match. Rudy, being a professional wrestler and knowing how big a part the element of surprise plays in what we do, were these Joker reveals disappointments, or were they worth the wait?
When I found out it was John Morrison, I thought it was, or Johnny Elite. I was pretty surprised. I didn't know what he was doing since he left WWE and stuff, and so I thought that was a pretty good little surprise. As far as on the female side, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not. I just said, huh? The other part is, I would assume that bringing in a surprise individual or whatever, they would get the win to make it mean even more. Right. But that didn't happen. So I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm not a fan of AEW. I just watch what they do, and like I said earlier, I watch what they do, and I don't make a judgment right then and there. I wait to see what's going to play out later on. But I mean, I was surprised with Johnny Elite. I can't say I was surprised or not surprised on the female side because I had no clue, But I do wish that Johnny Elite would have got the win, and like I said, it would have made a bit more, the element of surprise, if you don't know who your opponent is, it's almost a given that since you don't know who your opponent is, you can't prepare properly. And I'm thinking reality wise, you can't prepare properly, but yet he was still able to, Samoa Joe was still able to beat him. So that kind of like buries Elite a little bit, maybe not bury him, but the impact just wasn't as impactful, I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Neff?
Oh, we got to give respect to old Samoa Joe, though. Samoa Joe gets it done every time. Look, I was surprised. I was surprised. I was wondering where Johnny's been. And let's not forget he goes by 20 other different names. Let's run through some of them. Johnny Ultra, Johnny Foxwoods, Johnny Ox, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Mondo, Johnny Game Changer, Johnny Elite. He goes by them all. Johnny. Impressive as far as just surprising the crowd and everything. I think he's going to have a good run. I think the loss was a given that they're going to set him up for some other storylines and other things going on. So I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, hey, the guy just disappeared out of WWE. Nobody asked any questions. Nobody held any signs saying, "Where's Johnny?" Nobody asked in the chats. Nobody reached out, nothing. So I'm excited to see what happens. As far as the women's side, I didn't know much about her. And I mean, that was a surprise too, I guess, for the fans. She's been away, but she's also been a part of AEW. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. But both of them taking losses on two Joker wild cards kind of thing is just kind of like, okay, why did we have this going on? But hey, Samoa Joe gets it done.
Gotcha. Now, considering who's in this tournament, this tournament was created to honor the memory and the legacy of the late great Owen Hart. Do you think that it will serve a dual purpose in terms of elevating a talent and what could possibly be, the brass ring with beyond saying you won the tournament? What could possibly happen as a result of being the winner of the tournament? Neff, give me your thoughts.
I think it will hold much ground as the Andre the Giant tournament with WWE. That's just my personal take on it. I don't see it being like just one of those things that's always talked about or just like this big high stakes kind of tournament kind of thing, but it'll hold this place. I believe it'll hold this place.
Rudy?
Yeah, I'm pretty much along the same lines. I mean, they can make it mean something by the winner of the tournament going on and becoming something bigger and better or whatever. But and I would give it to let me put it this way. I would hope a younger, newer talent would win it and use that as means to elevate them, to give them a little springboard,
Yeah.
to help them move along and stuff. And then in the future, and that would help make the if they decide to do it every year in the future, that would make the tournament mean something as well.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's a nice gesture. It's a nice tournament to have. It's a great way to honor a guy in our business who was taken away from us way too soon. Most definitely. Yeah, I really would like to see there be, would there be a little more? Could there be a little more depth behind it? Could there be a storyline behind somebody winning the tournament? You never know. I don't know if either of you watch Major League Wrestling, but I watch it. I'm a very big fan of Major League Wrestling. It's an independent wrestling started by Court Bauer that runs, they're starting to gain a little, ground and run in different places. They, a few years back, brought back a tournament called the Opera Cup. The Opera Cup was a tournament held in the very, very early, I guess, 1900s. One of the most famous people winning the tournament was Stu Hart. They brought it back. It was nostalgic. It featured some really great wrestling. The first winner of the tournament happened to be Stu's grandson, Harry Smith. And I think they've had it 2 years since, but the fanfare behind it has kind of just fizzled. And with that being said, even though AEW has a much bigger following than MLW does, do you fear that maybe this tournament will go in that direction? Either of you.
Only the promotion can determine that, really. I mean, it's what they do with the winner of the tournament, and if they make this a yearly thing, build off of that. It's up to the promotion, really.
Right. Neff?
I agree. It's really going to just come down to that, on how engaged they're going to be and how committed they're going to be to it. And I mean, just like the Andre the Giant Award, if they just stay consistent with it every year, bring new talent in, and like you said, springboard them, then it'll be around, and they got the platform to hold it.
Nice. While we're on the subject of AEW, what do either of you think of the world title reign of Adam Page thus far?
I didn't honestly, I didn't know he was still the world champion.
Oh, that says a lot. Wow.
I mean, the last I heard from Adam, the last really I heard about Adam Page was the match he had with Bryan Danielson. And there's a lot of talk after that match, and then again, that should have been like a springboard for him to to do other stuff and have people talk and whatever. I mean, honestly, I didn't know he was still the world champion. I thought maybe Punk may have gotten it, or I don't know where it went. I when you just said that, I was like, holy cow, he's still. And I started, he is still the world champion. But I think AEW should focus more on their world champion than they put a lot of focus on guys like Sammy, and that's fine too. And just some of the other guys and the silly little programs like Sammy and Ty, and stuff. I mean, they should use some of that time to push their world champion, and he's a good kid. He's a good little worker. He's a good he's a good hand. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't.
Neff?
The only reason why I know him is because he won the title back on my birthday last year, November 13th, 190 days plus. So to still hold the title, I think it's more of just a crowd pleaser thing. They don't want to give it to someone more established, and it's just kind of like a build-up situation going on with that. Like, let them hold it, and then when it's the right time, the right person to come along and get it. But yeah, he's not drawing much of attention. If we can't even remember he's champ for almost 200 days now, so that says a lot.
His reign is pretty underwhelming, huh? It does feel that way. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about quite possibly the most powerful couple in professional wrestling going in opposite directions. All right, stay tuned. It's the Planet Velvet Podcast.
When you see your wife, how does she make you feel?
She's peaceful. Trip to paradise.
Hey, welcome back to the Planet Velvet Pro Wrestling Podcast. That was the trailer for a movie by 480 Films called Paradise, starring Tavares Wilson, Ty Anderson, and somebody on his panel, guy by the name of Neff.
That be me.
Yeah, for all the things Neff does. Neff is an actor and he's also a recording artist. So yeah, be sure to check him out on Spotify. Now, as I was saying before we went to break, we're talking about the most powerful couple in professional wrestling headed in opposite directions. Late last week, we got wind that Stephanie McMahon would be taking an extended leave of absence from WWE. At the same time, we found out that Triple H would be returning to WWE and assuming his backstage duties again. Um, okay, Stephanie's was the one that was reported first. So Rudy, immediate reaction. Stephanie taking an immediate leave of absence from WWE.
Good. I mean, man, between Stephanie, Shane, Vince, and Hunter and Triple H, I mean, those guys put a lot of work into that company, and it's not, I mean, I've read stories of Vince, up early in the morning, staying up late at night, working out, business stuff, whatever, and I'm sure Stephanie and Shane and Hunter are no different, and it takes a lot of effort to put that empire that they've created, together and keep it running. And I'm, they've got, Stephanie and Triple H have kids. I have kids, and it's tough to leave the house sometimes. You can leave the house, and you're looking at your kid who's not even potty trained, and then one day you come home and they're going through 8th grade and stuff, and you're like, where'd the time go? So what I saw was Stephanie just saying, you know what, my kids are getting older and my husband is ill. He was almost taken from us not too long ago, so I'm going to step back and I'm going to spend more time with my family. But then Triple H says, I'm going back to work. So maybe it's just, they're just switching roles a little bit. And, they both want to spend time with the kids and stuff. And so one decides to step back, one decides to step forward. And, I mean, they're tough decisions to make on both parts. But I really didn't think too much of it. I mean, I didn't think there was anything else going on other than just a decision, of what it was.
Nice. Neff?
Yeah, that was my exact response to that, was just a role switching situation. I mean, Stephanie's been holding down the fort and not just dealing with, everything WWE, but also dealing with the other side shows and dealing with a lot of the network shows and things like that. So she had a lot on her plate. She's been going in nonstop. I mean, Triple H, of course, had the heart failure and, fluid on his lungs and things like that. So he needed that moment to step away. And I think he just got tired of being at home. Just like he may have wanted to get back in the business and be involved. And I kind of hark back to the beginning with the whole Sasha and Naomi thing. Bold kind of response, but I believe that the whole Stephanie walking away or taking some time off may have affected it too, because she was such an advocate for the women's division. But Triple H was also a big advocate for the women's division. So if they would have gave it a little time to let things kind of play out, Triple H would have came in and said, "Hey, I got y'all. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to leave y'all without the support that they've been contributing to the women's, division." So yeah, I think it's a great thing that she's getting some time away, focus on her kids, focus on her life, recharge herself, and she's gonna come back and make another impact like she always has.
Yeah, the first thing I thought about when I heard she was leaving, with all the crazy stuff going on throughout the week, I was thinking women's division, because she's been a huge proponent of of women taking things to the next level, from all the things I talked about Sasha Banks being a part of, to matches that happened overseas during Crown Jewel and Super Showdown, to the Evolution pay-per-view, all those things.
Main
And
events.
yeah, and for that to go down and then her to leave, it was just like, oh man, what really could happen? But I was relieved that Triple H came back, because I kind of wonder if if Sasha's reaction to everything that happened would have been as impulsive if Triple H had been there, simply because for everything everybody has said about him as a talent and all that other crap, the today's talent has a genuine appreciation for Triple H's input, not just in the product, but in their careers. Like, they really love that guy. It goes without being said. And I really wonder, had he been there, would things have been different? Now that he is there, if you had one aspect of WWE that really needed immediate attention that he could help improve on, what would it be, Neff?
The women's division. I heard the last part of the question. What was the question again?
I was just saying, if there was any part of WWE that Triple H could, involve himself in at this moment and help improve immediately, what part would that be?
It's going to be the women's division. I believe that everything else is running the way it's supposed to run. With the men's side, the storylines are playing out just right. For the next couple pay-per-views to the next weekly shows, I think they're fine. The women's division needs his attention right now, and he can make a real impact on that immediately, right out the gate. So I think that's where he's going to focus most on. I mean, you got Ronda Rousey in limbo. Charlotte Flair looks like she's going to be stepped away for a minute since losing the title. So he's going to make that impact immediately in the women's division.
Nice. Rudy?
Same thing. More specifically, I think the Sasha Banks and Naomi situation right away. Just so it doesn't get too far out of hand and too much being said that shouldn't be said. So I think he'll try and get that situated immediately.
Absolutely. While we're on the subject of Triple H, when we talk about him, we have to talk about his professional wrestling legacy. How do you think that he will be remembered as a performer, Rudy?
Man, that's a tough one, because I mean, if you take everything into account, the click and the get in the ring with all the guys and doing what they did, the curtain call, and then some people hated that part, and then as a performer, I mean, he was always figured into the top spots, and a lot of it had to do with, I don't know, honestly, I don't think a lot of it had to do. This is my true opinion of Triple H. Is I think he got into business, and he figured out what he needed to do. He worked his tail off to get to that point. He's the one out of Shawn and Kevin and Hall. He's the one that got punished for the curtain call. And I think he had to put Warrior over like in, I don't know, 2 seconds or something stupid like that. And then he bounced back. He was still able to bounce back and become who he became, main eventing the WrestleManias, and not just main eventing them, but having these great matches with Taker and Shawn and Rock and Austin, and I mean on, and then a lot of guys would have stopped at the punishment. They would have said, "No, I ain't doing it," and that would have been it. But Hunter bounced back and then continued and became a name. And oh, by the way, he hooked up with the boss's daughter, which kind of unfairly takes away from a lot of that, because I've heard guys in conversation like, well, the only reason is because he's with Stephanie. Well,
Right.
you can say that, but I don't think that's why he got. I don't think that's why he got that position. He's Triple H is actually a very good worker, performer, and whatever you want to call it. He's actually the top of the ladder of the food chain, or near the top. And so I think where he's at, or what his legacy should be, the success that he's had has been due to all the hard work he put in. And then there's always, like I said, it's always going to be but Stephanie, that's always going to be factored in. But I don't think that really has as much of an impact as just the work that he put in.
Absolutely. Neff, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. He's one of the top guys. Just in-ring performer. He's been on top of his game. He loves the game. He never cheated the game. First one in, last one out. Like he's devoted so much of his life to the in-ring performance, and he's put on incredible matches throughout his career. He's held pretty much every single title. I mean, you're part of DX, and you brought all of these great memories. I think Triple H, his legacy. I mean, he's with China. So, you gotta throw that out. That's what you'll remember him for. I think it's actually with China. But he just had a great career. And I mean, his legacy lives.
Yeah. I think personally, I think Triple H is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. That's just my personal opinion. I think we just live in a day and age where everybody is always seeking to minimalize what people do for their own strange reasons, and that's why, the whole thing with Stephanie, him marrying her, is something that people always talk about. Scott Steiner ragged him for years about it. And then you look up and they're standing next to each other after the Steiner brothers have been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Every hero needs a villain, and he wasn't above playing the villain. He wasn't above being a bad guy. He made a lot of guys look good. He really trained his butt off. He really went the extra mile. Like, wrestling is his life. It really is. He has given his life to the business. And I think that to shortchange him in any way, even by saying something is, okay, well, all right, he married the boss's daughter and stuff like that. Having been in the business, I know about wrestling relationships. I've never been in one, but I've seen more than my share of them. And it's hard to really pass judgment on them if you haven't really been in the business. And right. I mean, a lot of the people who are talking about Triple H being married to Stephanie McMahon don't even have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's crazy, but it's true. So you kind of just like, whatever. But like I said, that's just kind of the day and age we live in, where people try to minimalize what you do and what you've done and who you are. But I think that Triple H is one of the best ever. And I don't think that, his accomplishment should be marginalized by somebody's short-sightedness under any stretch of the imagination. Right. Guys, we will be right back. When we come back, we're going to take some time. We're going to talk to the one and only Rudy Boy Gonzalez. All right? Stay tuned. It's the Planet Velvet Pro Wrestling Podcast. Log on to StallionSquad.com today and use discount code VELVET10 to get yourself some great savings on premium fitness gear, no matter what your fitness level may be. Stallion Squad. Squad up. And just like that, he's gone. Yes. Did you see it? Wow. That was.
He's going right to the gym.
And he's back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Rudy Boy Gonzalez has returned. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Rudy at a show. I want to say it was either in Dublin or Dudley, Georgia. I wrestled Dax Anthony that night, and I wound up coming away with the victory against Dax. And one thing about me, no matter how many years I've been in the business, I don't mind somebody pulling me to the side and saying, okay, you could do this better. You should have done this. You should have done that. And Rudy did that for me when we got finished wrestling. He pulled both me and Dax to the side and said, this was good. This wasn't. This needs work. And I've always appreciated that about Rudy. I've always had that kind of appreciation for him. Rudy, now we know that you are a former head trainer at the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy. I've seen you do some wrestling training and live stream it on social media.
Right.
If there was any one training exercise you could do for wrestlers who need conditioning, which is something a lot of wrestlers really, a lot of guys who just get into business really ignore. If there's one exercise that you can give those guys to do, what would it be?
That one's a double-edged sword, though. But taking bumps. I see a lot of guys that don't take bumps properly, and they hurt themselves. The only problem is the only way to learn how to bump properly is to bump. The problem with that is even on taking bumps, you're giving you're creating trauma for your brain, for your head. And as we know now, that's a serious issue. So, like at my school, we take bumps, but I try and work guys into, getting used to, the process and tucking the chin and all that stuff. But as soon as I see it, a guy has it, a guy knows what he's doing, we could do something else. I mean, just in the course of training, you're going to take hundreds and hundreds. And every, what we know now, and I talked with Chris Nowinski a while back about this, and he said, by all means, bumps do add into the try. It's not as bad as getting hit with a chair, but just time and time again, just bam, 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 bam. That's not good. So like years ago, a guy goofing around or whatever challenged another guy to bumping, who could take the most bumps in a row. And I think they got up to like 100. And yeah, see, like now we're like, oh shit, but back then it was like, oh wow, like I'm impressed. But looking back now, it's like that guy is lucky he's not dead. I mean, that's crazy. So our intelligence, our what we know about head trauma stuff is far more greater than it was before. But I mean, unfortunately, taking bumps is part of the deal. It's part of the, it's part, like you go to the police academy, part of training is getting tased. Nobody wants to do that, but you got to do it so you'll know what it's like. But I mean, in the wrestling world, man, you have to do that, but it's also a detriment to your health. So, but I mean, taking bumps and then conditioning, I guess, which is really what you're asking about. Burpees, you're wrestling wise, you're always running, stopping, jumping, pushing, shoving, pulling, getting down, getting up, getting down, getting up, jumping, running, wash, rinse, and repeat. So burpees, if you can do as many as possible, and you're jumping up, you're going down, you're doing a push up, you're popping back up on your feet, you're jumping up, you're going down, just any kind of multiple multiple exercise like that, is what I suggest guys to do.
Right. I got you. Now, if you got anything you'd like to ask Rudy?
I've always wondered about bumps and, like, in your opinion, like the lifespan of wrestlers in the business that take all these bumps. Like, what's the time frame? Like, how long can a wrestler really go taking these kind of bumps? Because I'm looking back at even like all the injuries and everything that's happened most recently, like Big E, for example, that literally had to eat that one, just the unsafe and trusting other wrestlers to provide that safety net for you, or to hold you up, or protect you in that way. Like, what's the lifespan of taking all these bumps, like you said, with the head trauma and all that?
Yeah, everyone is different, man. I mean, I'm not gonna say how old I am, but I'm older than 50. And I started when I was 18. So that's quite a ways. But I'm not gonna say I've never had a concussion. I've probably had a couple here and there. But I've never had any kind of neck surgery. I've never had any kind of back surgery. I've never had any kind of soldier surgery. I've never had, just because the guys that I trained with, like the Manny Fernandezes, the Chavo Guerreros, the Telly Blanchers, the Dick Slaters, those guys, Eric Embry, the sheep herder guys, they were very specific, very precise on bumping, and very attentive to make sure you tuck your chin. They drilled that into my head. Like if it even looked like I didn't bump properly, I got chewed out. I mean, I got. So if you look back now, Luke Williams is still working. He just did a match, I think, the other day. I mean, Manny Fernandez is still working, and they're older than I am. Chavo Girl, before he passed away, he was still working, and he didn't pass away from concussion. So it was something else. So he was still good to go. Flair, how old is he? He's gonna have a match.
78, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, he's way older than I am, and he's still going. And guys are being critical about that, and he's too old and whatever. That's his choice, man. But it was just that back in the day, we took the guys that I feel very fortunate, because I feel like I'm one of the last guys that was trained in that method. The guys are very attentive on what you did and how you did it, because if I was careless with my own body, more than likely I was going to be careless with your body too. And nobody wants to get in the ring with someone that's going to be careless. So, but nowadays, like I just posted a video of Joey Janela catch his foot on fire. Why? Why would you do? And then guys like there's a video of Sammy Guevara taking a dive off a ladder. A guy showed me yesterday of another video of Darby Allin, I think it was. He did a flip off of a ladder onto the floor. Why would you do that stuff? It's and back then we used to say the big stuff for the big shows. Well, now some of these guys, their big show is AEW. But then you're like, all right, why are you still doing that though? It's not big enough. It's because at the end of the day, you see these guys, the dynamite kids, they took a bump and they never got up again, and then they're hobbling around, and you see you see some of these older guys that did crazy stuff, like Terry Funk, and he's they're just hobbling, Terry did for his longevity, he did start doing the hardcore stuff, like the ECW type. He still did the hardcore, I guess you could say, back in the day. But once he started kicking it up to doing the flips off the ropes and stuff, I think that's where his physical health started going downhill. But I mean, we were always taught to take care of yourself and take care of your body. You only got one body, you only got one brain, you only have one of whatever, so take care of it. And I think kids are just more daredevilish. They're not thinking past tomorrow, tonight. They're not thinking past next week. They're not thinking. So with my school, we don't teach that stuff. We don't teach the crazy. I focus a lot on the bump taking and hip tosses and the arm drags, the old school stuff. But I tell my guys, if you do this stuff exactly the way I'm telling you to, or close to it, you'll be fine for another 20, 30 years. Take care of your body. At the end of the day, and I hate saying this, but at the end of the day, the fans really don't care if you're hobbling around at 45 years old. They may say, "Oh my God, you're so young," and that's where it ends. I've never heard one fan say, not knocking the fans, they're there for the entertainment value, of course, but I've never heard one fan say, "Don't jump off that ladder, you're gonna hurt yourself. You've got kids to think about. Don't do it. I don't want to." No, when a guy gets up on top of the ladder, the crowd gets louder because they want to see that. They want to see that that big move, and
Right.
in the back of their head, I'm almost sure they're saying, I hope he messes himself up because whatever. But I'm responsible for me, and I'm also responsible for you as well. So I can't take care of you if I'm hobbling around, if my back is killing me or whatever because of the stupid stuff I've done. I mean, it's a big domino effect. So I mean, we all have bump cards, what we call bump cards. My bump card may be able to take more bumps than yours, but we don't know. We don't know how that works. So I just tell guys, just take care of yourselves, man. Just, you know, 50 years old, and I can still throw passes with my son. But I know some guys that are 30 that can't lift their arms up. You know, and that's tough, man. It's, and I just, they're missing out. And I get it. We're all young and stuff, and wrestling's like the greatest thing in the world. But when you get past it, there's a way bigger world out there than pro wrestling. And you have to be able to function in that world. You can't, again, and not, it's just the way it's just what I see. You're hobbling around, you're on crutches or whatever. And if you tell somebody, yeah, I hurt my back because I took this big bump off the ring, and they're just going to say, move out of the way. That's it. Move out of the way. Sorry to hear about that. Move out of the way. So, I mean, yes, I understand. I mean, I'm a huge lover of pro wrestling. I love the older days. I like the new generation. I everything. I watched the show last night, and some of the matches were horrible, but I shouldn't say horrible. They weren't as good, but I could see the effort that the guys were putting in their match, and I appreciate it. I was one of those guys at one time. Same thing with you, Anthony. I mean, I see the things that you guys are doing, and you guys, if I remember correctly, you guys came to the back, and you looked like you thought you conquered the world, but you still thought, hey, how did I match? And I didn't want to be ugly, but I could see when I said, hey, well, maybe you should have done this. You should have done this better. I could see disappointment, but it's just to help you guys because you're wearing yourselves out when you really don't have to. But I remember that day. I mean, that was for Greg Green. I think it was Greg Green. Yep. And poor guy.
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
That is another podcast, the Greg Green podcast. Neff, we gotta have a talk about that one, sir. Trust me, that you wouldn't. That's a story that you will, if you ever privy to hear that. Trust me, it's a heck of a story for all the wrong reasons.
Thanks to my years of being around the wrestling business, I saw it coming. So he had actually asked me, hey, can you guys make it? And I was like, no, not this time around. And he even called me. I sent one of the guys, Francisco, the message that he sent me. He said, He said, he sent me a message like Thursday. The show was Saturday. Sent me a message Thursday. Are you sure you guys don't want to come? This one's gonna. He said something like, this one's gonna set the world on fire. And I was like, no, I think we'll pass. Poor guy.
Oh my God. That was just that whole situation. And you know what? For that reason, I saw it coming too, and that's why I didn't go. I didn't go either. I didn't go. But yeah, let's just say that Paul Orndorff added to his legend that night. He definitely did. Paul Orndorff added to his legend. Yeah, that's definitely another podcast to talk about. Rudy, now you're based in Texas, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're based in Texas. Two of the greatest organizations in the history of Texas wrestling, in my personal opinion, were very influential on my career, and that is World Class Championship Wrestling. I grew up a big fan of the Von Erichs. I loved Kerry Von Erich. And in later years, the Global Wrestling Federation. Huge fan of all that wrestling going on. I tried like hell to get into Eric Embry, but I couldn't. I could not get into Eric Embry. I tried to get into him because he was like the shining light of wrestling. And with the whole WCCW changing the USWA and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to Eric Embry in comparison to some of the guys who have passed through both World Class and the GWF, where would you rank him?
I give the devil his due, man, but also I'm speaking out of biasness because Eric was one of the guys that broke me in down here in Southwest Wrestling. And then he went up to World Class and did what he did there. But Eric Embry is a very smart guy. He sat down here. The bookers were Jonathan Boyd and Luke Williams, and they had Southwest Wrestling on fire. And Eric would sit in and listen and talk and whatever. So he learned from those guys. Plus, he also grew up and he knew the Jarretts. He knew the guys up there and stuff. So I mean, he had a very smart wrestling IQ, and so it was just a matter of giving him the opportunity. So he did, and so he was helping book with World Class, and then when he went to World Class, he was with Johnny Mantell and those guys, and Johnny had those guys are again. So it was one guy to the next, and so Eric developed a very high wrestling. Storytelling, that type of stuff, IQ. So I would rank him up there, right along with the Gary Harts and those guys. He didn't look like much. I mean, when you look at Kerry Von Erich, you're like, holy cow. And you look at Terry Gordy, holy cow. And you look at Rod Price, holy cow. And then you look at Eric Embry.
Yeah, right.
And so because of that, I get what you're saying. Because of that, people really couldn't figure out the heat and the everything that was about him, because he just didn't look like, even Eddie Gilbert, you could say Eddie Gilbert, and even though he was shorter, he was smaller and stuff. Yeah, I could see, I could see where he would, where he's a pro wrestler or whatever. But Eric just didn't fit that mold, but that also helped to his character as well, to his to his work. And then and fortunately also today, so I'm working with a group called not World Class Wrestling, but World Class Pro Wrestling. And Eric today is helping with the booking. And so now I sit and I listen to whatever they're talking about and stuff, and try and catch on to stuff that he's doing with James. It's him and James Beard, and Eric's a very smart dude wrestling wise. I mean, I can't say enough about stuff that he talks about. Whatever, like I said earlier, it may not make sense to you now, but when you think about it later on, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it. So I get what he's saying. So ranking Eric Embry, wrestling wise, but psychology wise, he's right up there. Can you hear me?
Oh, I was muted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was muted. Neff, question. You got a question for Rudy?
Is there any? Can you name off some of the wrestlers that you trained over the years that maybe some of the people may know? Like I went through some of them, and I know Danielson was one of them. Brian Danielson.
Everybody talks about Brian Danielson, of course, and he's a friend of mine. To this, that was as a matter of fact, today's his birthday.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and Brian Kendrick, who's a very good friend of mine today. So I trained those guys in 99, 2000, that area. And to this day, I mean, I love those guys to death. They made wrestling fun for me again. Back then was like the beginning of the independence wrestling stuff or whatever. Yeah. So there was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of, hey brother, I'm going to pay you this much money. And then you don't get what. There was a lot of bad stuff going on at that time. And I still did it because, again, like I said earlier, I loved the wrestling business and I enjoyed it. But there were parts of it that I just despised. And then having those kids come in with Shawn and training and stuff made me enjoy the business again. And it's held over all this time. So it was Brian Kendrick, Brian Danielson, there was Lance Cade, obviously, who was in that group. Sean Hernandez. Man, there's a lot of the guys I have now. Moonshine Mantel. So the group I work with, World Class Wrestling, World Class Pro Wrestling, their main event is Moonshine Mantel and a kid named Max Castellanos, which I trained both of those guys. And their intensity, their level of professionalism, and I'm not saying it because they're my boys. I'm saying it because it's what they're bringing to the table. It's what I see other promoters speak about them also. The level of professionalism, their intensity, their work, the whole 9 yards. It's there, and they're bringing in. They're carrying the promotions on their back. When you hear a guy like Charlie Haas say, "Man, those guys are great workers," that says a lot. And then I've trained a couple of girls, Alex Gracia, Pink Dream. She's used her wrestling platform to get around wherever she's going. I think she just did Ultimate Women Wrestling last night in Las Vegas. Nice. Micah Madrid, I happen to know her very well. She's doing the same thing. I mean, I've never heard of a promoter. She works for Shine. She's gone to OVW with Al Snow. I hold Al Snow and his opinion very high. And nothing but, and I don't think he tells me anything because he's trying to be nice. I just think he's very honest. He speaks very highly of Micah. Yeah. I mean, Sal over at Shine and Trevin and everyone that's come across her has spoken highly of her. And those are all, and there's a kid named Alex Arsenal. I mean, there's a ton of kids that I've trained that are running around the Texas area. And I always have somebody come, "Hey man, you did a great job with so-and-so." And that means the world to me because that's part of me. I'm older now. I can't do, much of anything except, maybe grab a hold. And even at that, I'll blow up in a second. But, but being able to push these guys out, and then I got a couple more kids I'm training right now, and then having kids. I had a kid the other day, a couple weeks ago, come in and he said, "My dad said to call you." And so now I'm having guys that I wrestled with years ago. They're sending their kids to me and saying, nice. "Hey, can you?" Yeah. Raquel Gonzalez, her and her dad walked in. Me and her dad were tag team partners for a period years ago. And so her dad walks in with her. And the last time I saw her, she was like, 10 years old and stuff. And so he walks in with this, 22-year-old woman. And he says, "Hey man, can you do me a favor and work with my daughter, train her a little bit, teach her some stuff, whatever." And so I have older guys that are, that I trained with, that I wrestled with, that are saying, "Hey, can you train my kids?" And that speaks, that just, I'm so grateful for that. Right. I have a kid that I trained in Shawn's school 20 years ago. He's older now, and wrestling wasn't for him. I think he actually got a family. So 20 years later, he has a house, and he built a garage in the back of his house, and he has a ring. And so he calls me, "I'll pay you X amount of dollars, come train my kids." So every other Sunday, so today I was off, but every other Sunday I drive to Houston and spend 2, 3, 4 hours, with his kids. So again, having the people that I've dealt with before, that I've trained with and wrestled with, and then want me to work with their children speaks the world of what, and there are times where I'm like, man, am I really doing the right thing? Or, and then having someone like Matt Bloom or whatever from the Performance Center call and say, right, "Can you come spend a week here?" That, that speaks the world also. So I enjoy what I do, man. I can't do what I used to, but I can pass it on to other guys. And as long as they're willing to listen, I have a kid and his dad coming to my school, and the dad's like, "Take care of my son, man." And I mean that again, having people say that, to say I appreciate it is just a complete understatement. It's just a complete, it just blows me away that there are people out there that trust me in that way with their kids.
Nice. Rudy, where can our fans find you on social media?
So I'm on Facebook, Rudy Gonzalez. There's a Rudy Boy Gonzalez page also. That's just for wrestling dates and stuff. So if you notice, that page isn't used much because I don't get many wrestling dates. But my Rudy Gonzalez, it'll say El Presidente, which is like an old joke. That's where you can contact me, message me, any questions, whatever, that's fine. And then the Texas Wrestling Academy Facebook page, and that's on Instagram also. And then Texas Wrestling Entertainment, the promotion. I tell guys all the time, I'm not like a promotion where, I'm really interested. I should be, but I'm not. I'm interested in these big crowds, these big shows. I'm more interested in giving guys a place, a venue to perform where there's 100 people or 50 people, or I'm not going to say 500 or 1,000. If you can perform and do well with 50 fans in the building, you're on the right track. It's easy to entertain 1,000 people. That's not hard at all. But if you can get 5 people that are sitting there, like, we're the only people here, what the hell's going on? And you can entertain them and you can get them into your match, you're on the right track. And so I consider Texas Wrestling Entertainment more of a training promotion than anything else. I was with the guy last night from World Class, and they're like, how can we get more people in the building? How can we get more people in the building? I'm not worried about that so much. I'm more worried about, how can I make you better? How can I get you from here to NXT? Or how can I get you from here to AEW or New Japan? Ricky Reyes comes in and trains with me. He's with New Japan. Brian Kendrick is going to come spend like 3 or 4 days next month with us. And I'll try to bring in guys. Francisco Ciazzo from Florida. He's coming and does clinics with me. Les Dapper's done clinics. Tom Pritchard's done clinics with us. So, it's just a matter of just keeping in contact with the Texas Wrestling Academy Facebook page and seeing who's coming in and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, awesome. It has been a huge pleasure having you here on the show, Rudy. You are more than welcome anytime to come and bless us with your knowledge, your infinite knowledge. And if you have any students, any current stars in Texas wrestling that would like to just have an opportunity to introduce themselves to a larger audience, by all means, they are more than welcome to come and do exactly what you've done. And we'll chop it up. We'll talk wrestling. We'll talk about wrestling's past, present, and future, because that's what I love to talk about. And I love that the business can be a little murky sometimes, but I've always been a fan of the sport. And I do love it. I love it with a passion. Neff, where can everyone find you on social media, sir?
Hollywood.
What? You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, NEF480MG, and be on all the links and all that good stuff. And thank you, Rudy, for joining us. I always say, I appreciate the bloodline that's behind, what we see, superstars that come out today and that's on the main screen or just in the public eye. That's great, but it's always the trainers, it's always the people that's behind the scenes that develop these superstars that we love and appreciate. So I always love talking to someone that is just behind the scenes, that's just developed some great performers. So thank you very much on my end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Planet Velvet Pro Wrestling Podcast. Once again, thank you to our very special guest, the initial guest, Mr. Rudy Boy Gonzalez. Neff is in the building. Thank you, Neff, for being an awesome co-host. We will see you guys here again, same time, same channel. Thank you once again to the 910 Sports Wrestling Network. Thank you to everyone who has watched us on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Hey, see you guys in the ring, all right? Take care.